Zer, so good to see you.
Oh, Guardian, what can I do for you today, my friend?
Well, you can come clean on what's really going on with you and the Nine.
I have to tell you, you would not understand.
Oh, I think that's where you're wrong. My eyes are finally open, friend. Hey all, this is Siege, and today is extra special for me because this is my first video where I answer you. Well, one of you at least. So let me first say thank you to James Murray for posting this question. Good old Zer. Hope he is with us in Destiny 2. What are your thoughts on that? This is an excellent question, and I want you all to know that if there is something special you would like more information on, please leave it in the comments and I'll do my best to feature your question in a future video. Also, consider liking and sharing the video if you enjoy it, as honestly, every bit helps. Now, I think to accurately answer it, we need to dig a little deeper into Zer, who he is, who he represents, and what his intentions might be. We now know the tower will no longer be available to us in Destiny 2, which would also suggest we won't have access to our ships, so a trip to the reef seems pretty much impossible at this point. Because of this, my first thought was that it's likely Zer would not be present, at least right away, and would continue to only be a minor vendor after being reintroduced. However, as I looked into it just a little bit further, I've since altered my perspective somewhat, basically because he may have been way more important than we ever gave him credit for in the past. Let me explain. The Nine are described as a group based among the Jovians, or most likely the gas giants in our solar system, i.e. Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune, and Uranus. We already know that Saturn will be a playable area in Destiny 2, although it hasn't been established how we'll get there yet. What this implies is we may actually have the opportunity to interact with the Nine and finally get an idea of what they are. The Ghost Fragment Legends 2 Grimoire card explains a number of what appear to be speculations on this idea, describing them as survivors of the Cis-Jovian colonies who made a compact with an alien force to ensure their own survival, deep orbit war minds who weathered the collapse and hardened stealth platforms, ancient Leviathan intelligences from the seas of Europa or the hydrocarbon pits of Titan, the Firstborn Awoken, ghosts who pierced the deep black without a ship and meditated on the hissing silence of the heliopause, a viral language of pure meaning, and shadows left by the annihilation of a transcendent shape, burned into the weft of what is. One could argue that the Nine are in fact all of these things. However, a few of them seem to suggest something a little darker and elusive, and when combined with some things in particular that Zer himself says, the mystery appears to stretch out a little bit further. First, he says this: "We came from the dust and burrowed into flesh for warmth and became something new." This is a really interesting statement, as we know only one other creature in this universe that employs that type of behavior, namely the worms. He goes on to talk about motes of dust, which I also find interesting in the fact that there's only one other mote we're familiar with, those of the light. Could dust be another term for darkness? He speaks of a dark mirror of the traveler, and has a working knowledge of the deep black, saying that the deep black is many things, but never lonely. Again, the deep is a term usually used in the context of the darkness. He says the Nine gave them purpose and made them whole, talks of a great many consciousnesses impinging upon his own, and interestingly enough, that he cannot endure long in this place. Why, you might ask? Well, he explains that too in brief dialogue, saying, "There's so much light here, I suppose I feel pain, and yet he keeps coming back." Again, only one other creature we know feels pain in the presence of the light, and that's the Hive, and by extension the darkness. Of course, pain is all the Hive feel at all, and feed upon this pain, as suggested in both the Ghost Fragment Warlock 2 Grimoire card, as well as the Psylocke Defiled card. Could Zer have been here this whole time trading with us and gaining our trust for some other reason than helping us fight? Well, he he answers that too. He says this: I came for the light, perhaps to understand the light. He tells us he has told us what he can, but that he is filled with secrets that we would not understand. These statements seem to offer a pretty good picture of the Nine, as well as what Xur's purpose might be. A double agent, perhaps? One that was sent here to gain our favor by providing us with exotic wares, all in an effort to better understand the light, maybe even to find a way to overcome it? Much of his dialogue is very telling and is placed right in front of us each weekend, yet how many of us have actually taken notice? Let's talk a little about the Nine and the interactions they have that are the most concrete in the grimoire, specifically with the Queen of the Reef. In the Ghost Fragment, the Queen grimoire card, we find out that the Queen's crows have apparently trespassed on Rhea, the fifth major moon of Saturn, and that the Nine do not approve. The Queen at this point offers them Skolos as a commemoration of their mutual victory, but does not do it in fear, as I've seen others state. In fact, given the context of the card, she's quite defiant, and makes sure to let them know that the crows are hers. From this we can assume that she and the Nine have had dealings in the past, and although they work together, it's purely for mutual benefit and not for allegiance. Her stern counter-warning shows that she does not fear their wrath. What's more, we come to find in the Mystery of Skolos grimoire card that Xur himself is sent to collect Skolos, and is set to be free, which tells me that overcoming this Kel and quite possibly Marisov's defeat of the Archon Priest is not, in fact, the mutual victory she speaks of. That's not even taking into consideration the Nine's freeing of this very dangerous enemy. This interaction reminds me of how Oryx views the worms, in that, although they appear to be on the same side, they aren't allies. Oryx comes to realize that the worm's gift is one that will consume he and his sisters in the end, and decides to take matters into his own hands, cutting his god Akka to pieces and becoming the Taken King. There's an implied disdain in his voice as he speaks with the worm before killing it, and afterwards he revels in his victory, saying that he can now speak to the deep, the final beautiful shape, and become the king of shapes. Could this be the moment alluded to earlier, where the Nine are shadows left by the annihilation of a transcendent shape, burned into the weft of what is? After all, Oryx concludes this card by saying that he has become the Taken King, and now has the power to take life and make it his own. Could the sword logic, Oryx's idea of a perfect existence, be that same idea burned into the weft and weave of what is? Could this even be the viral language that was alluded to earlier as well? To answer the original question posed, I feel that Xur will absolutely be in Destiny 2. What's less clear is in what capacity that will be. Much like the Imkara, who provide wishes to increase power at a price, Xur could be acting in the same manner, offering each of us our greatest desires, the most sought-after exotic weapons and armor, as well as methods of obtaining more exotics, with 3 of coins, as well as the ability to upgrade them with motes of light and exotic shards. All for strange coins, a method of currency we deem useless, but really only because we don't understand their purpose. They are, however, mysterious and valuable to someone or something, and the fact that they are warm to the touch and vibrate seems to suggest they contain a power of some sort. I feel Xur's interaction with us in Destiny 2 will be solely dependent on how much of his story is uncovered. To be quite honest, there really isn't much regarding him in the grimoire, save what I've already provided. He's a shadowy figure, and I feel like that's completely intentional. To what end that will provide, well, I can't intelligently say, but consider one more thing. The Cabal, as far as I can tell, have never been to Earth before, and further have not shown to have knowledge of the Traveler. How is it then that they knew how to disarm the Guardians and separate us from the light? Something even the great Oryx, the first navigator, the seer of seers, who has explicit knowledge of the Traveler, failed to exploit. To me, that would suggest this information did not come from the Hive, or even from information the Cabal may have uncovered on the Dreadnought. Let's face it, even we didn't know encasing the Traveler would disable our powers. As I see it, there are only 2 sources who could have given them this knowledge. One would be the Awoken in the Reef. Now, I've stated in previous videos that I firmly believe Marisov to be Savathun, Oryx's sister. So if that were to come to pass, it would make sense that she would provide another of the tools to cripple the Guardians in order to keep her true intentions in the shadows. You know, just feeding her worm with cunning as always. She has an agent here at all times in Eris Morn. Consider as well that we've been fighting in the reef for quite some time, with the knowledge that we're being studied. The promise of loot has always been the weakness of Guardians, after all. For those of you that think I'm wrong, listen to this piece of information, which comes in the form of the Prison of Elders card. In it, Varix discusses how the old fallen ways align perfectly with the Queen's agenda. Guardians go where the treasure and the glory are, and an arena of champions is a wonderful place to earn both. Guardians in the Reef deter threats to the Queen and give the Awoken a chance to learn about their power and subvert, or pervert or corrupt by an undermining of morals, allegiance, or faith, their loyalty to the Traveler, which is fairly telling. But consider the end. He goes on to say, beware, the agents of the Nine are active in the Reef, and their curiosity is as limitless as it is inscrutable. Always remember that you are being watched and tested. So, who better to provide the Cabal with this information than the Awoken? Well, maybe one of those aforementioned agents of the Nine, one who speaks of a mission the Nine have given him, but one he can't remember, and yet he tells us he's here at the tower for the light and to understand it. Would this understanding include how to cut us off from it? As more of the Destiny 2 story is uncovered, one theme seems to be incontrovertible. Our enemies, all of them, appear to almost be organizing against us. And aside from the Fallen, who were never really agents of the darkness to begin with, as we were led to believe, are gaining the upper hand. The Cabal have taken our powers, and the Vex have learned how to imprint themselves upon us, rendering us helpless, as shown in the Age of Triumph Grimoire card, Ghost Fragment Eris Morn. The Hive continue to work against us, as the Traveler is considered the bane of their existence and the cause of the God Wave. We're being surrounded. So, does it still seem so hard to believe that the most popular agent of the Nine may have just been testing us in his own ways to understand the light, for the Nine's own means, maybe to be used to barter, even with another race, for something they might want? It sounds just like Xur, doesn't it? Ever wonder where he goes from Sunday to Thursday? I think it makes the most sense to assume those days are spent with his other clients. Wonder what those quote-unquote clients might want for some precious strange coins, and why does he value them so much? We may just find out very soon, and we might not be happy that we are so trusting for something so trivial as weapons. We may have just allowed information of our only weakness, a loss of our powers, to fall into the wrong hands. Contrary to popular belief, greed is not good. Please consider this idea moving forward. Looks like we have a tough road ahead.